Welcome to Grow My Etsy Shop podcast, the drips of knowledge you need to start growing. Hey, welcome. So for this week, I'm going to be a little all over the map because I've had my kids, it sounds like I'm divorced when I say that. My wife's in London, and so I've had doing both shifts. There's a good way to say that. I've been doing both shifts for the week, and so my kids have a co-op. They're homeschooled, but they have a co-op today, and then a friend offered to watch my baby, and so I was like, all right, let's do this podcast. And then I sat down to do the podcast. I was like, I have not flushed this out. So brace yourself. This is going to be a little bit of a all over the map one, but there's some good stuff in here. Let's talk about it. So one of the things that's really unique about this project that I have, Grow My Etsy Shop, is that it allows me, because I am a growth marketer, I do this for a living. This is all things that I'm bringing in, and I do train myself, and I'm part of masterminds myself. And so I dump all that into this podcast. But another thing that's really beneficial is that I meet with a lot of Etsy sellers. And I've at this point been doing this for years. And if you've worked with me before, you know that I have a very curious mind. I will ask lots of questions. Sometimes I cross the line with my questions. Sometimes I put my foot in my mouth. But I do ask, and I'm not fearful of asking questions. And that allows me to learn from Etsy shops. And so there are people who are doing things really well or seeing the success that people are chasing for. And I have opportunities to personally interview these people and learn from them. Another thing that I get from this as well, and this is luckily a way my brain kind of works, is that I have good pattern recognition. I can see things and that person is doing the same thing as that person who's doing the same thing as that person who's doing the same thing as that person, and they all have success in what they're doing. Maybe it's this trait that they're doing that is giving them the success that they have. So as I start to connect the chain of success, like I find, you remind me of this person, or yeah, I've spoken to someone who's done that similar, and that person reminded me of that person and that person, and I just kind of create this chain of you all have this in common. I really have two chains, that's the analogy we're going to go with, of things that I see a lot that come from successful Etsy shops. And so I thought, hey, let me share today what those two chains are. Two chains. That's a rapper. Oh man, I wish I knew a quote. I'm gonna look it up. I'm different. Yeah, I'm different. 2 Chainz. I was gonna drop the song in, but guess what? When I drop songs into my podcast, then they can't be monetized on YouTube. So all my 30 views that gets me 14 cents a week, I don't get paid. And if I don't get that 14 cents, then what am I doing this podcast for? So you're just gonna have to hear me a cappella this, but there's 2 Chainz for you. Okay. Back to 2 Chainz. So chain number 1 that I see Etsy sellers doing, and this is one of my favorite exercises to do, is the minute I put it together, the minute I see numbers that I'm like, oh wow, that's really good, and then I go to the next chain, I'm like, whoa, that's really good. I go to the next one, wow, that's really good. You have a sales funnel that is converting. You are getting massive amount of traffic. You are converting that traffic. People are coming back and buying from you. You have this. I open up their shop, and I go through what is the top products that are bringing them success, because that's how Etsy works, right? You're not going to have 900 views from 900 products. You're going to have 900 views from 2 products. And so what are those 2 products, 3 products, 4 products, 5 products that are bringing in these views to your shop? And you ready? Here's the chain. This is the thing that I know as I go through it. And it's funny because I go through listings in 2 different ways. The first way I usually go through an Etsy is with my coach glasses on. So I'm looking for things that don't match best practice. So I'm like, oh, hey, probably we should do that. Or, hey, this is statistically proven to help you if you did this. And no. But I don't usually say it out loud the first time I'm going through it, unless I know that their numbers aren't very good, then I do. But if their numbers are good, I go through that. My brain kind of does that first, and then I have to reset my palette. I have to be wait. I need to go through this as if I'm actually going to buy the product, which changes the way I go through a listing. Because when I go through a listing, just looking at it from kind of a non-emotional standpoint, it's kind of like in Emperor's New Groove when he's goes through the girls, and he's like, oh, nope. Oh, I'm sure you have a great personality. I sort of do that with a listing. I just kind of go through it, and I'm like, no. But then when I'm like, hey, I actually have to, weird analogy, I actually have to choose the wife, then I'm going to look at it very differently of what does it mean to me? How do I emotionally react to this? How am I learning about this product through this listing. And this is, Jared, you've really built this up. This is what I know. This is what I see work, and I'm about to share it with you. People who convert at very high volume, their listings are built for a third grader. This isn't a new concept. You've heard this before. The dumber you speak, the higher your conversion is. To be perfectly honest with you, I have a third grade reading level. So therefore, I feel like the reason people listen to my podcast is that I just don't use big words. Don't use big word. And so people will say, Jared, you do a great job. I really appreciate that the way you explain this. It makes sense. And it's like, yeah, it's just because I'm dumb. So it works out. In your listings, when you are creating your listings and doing your thing, well, this is actually a really great quote. It comes from Alex Hormozi. It's in his book, 100 Million Leads. And I honestly run myself through this test all the time. Because it's easy to just be like, talk like a third grader. And you're like, okay, whatever. But this is a good way to do it. Can I explain what I'm trying to sell to a third grader? So can Jared Robinson explain this to a third grader? And if I can't explain it to a third, I'm like, well, it's I get choppy, or it's a little complicated, or I'm using a word and then I'm like, wait, there's no way they're going to know what that means. Then that means I don't understand the product. That means I am missing the mark. It's my fault. I need to be held accountable. And so until I get to a spot where I can explain what I'm trying to explain to a third grader, that's when I know, like, ding, 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 got it. And this is a in fact, I was listening to someone speak the other day, and they talked about a 50% conversion to their email list as soon as they ran it through a third grader reading level thing. And they just went through and changed it until and then a 50% conversion to what they're doing. And I've heard this story over and over and over again. You need to be able to have the ability to explain it to a third grader and then hold yourself accountable if you can't. I can't sell. That's me. That's on Jared. I need to be able to. I don't understand my product enough to sell it to a third grader. As soon as you understand it enough to sell it to a third grader, you have a formula, a chain, one of the two chains of being able to sell. Now, this is I'm just going to use objection, but I thought that's not a good third grader word. This is beef. Not a good third grader word. This is an issue. This is a problem that people bring up. There it is. And it's that people think they're going to talk down to their audience. Like, if I talk like a third grader, it's going to be like, oh, hi there. Look, coochie coochie coo. It's like, no. First of all, that's an infant. Second of all, this is what talking like a third grader does. Let me rephrase that. Talking to a third grader does. Is it helps the experts understand more easily. So you might say, well, no, if people who are buying from me know, let's just say you're in a niche of crochet or yarn or something like that. And you're like, no, my people know this stuff. I worked with someone last year who was a yarn person. She dyed yarn. And no, yeah, anyone who's buying custom yarn knows their stuff. They know, that's my target audience. And I was like, get it. Totally get it. Makes perfect sense. However, if they're an expert in this, then you're just helping them understand it more easily, which one of the biggest frictions in checkout is complexity. Ooh, big word. Come on, Jared, third grader it, is not understanding. There you go. So by not understanding, there's a friction that comes, and your whole job is to remove friction. And so imagine how much easier life is going to be as soon as they understand it. Now, experts understand more easily, and your beginners will understand for the first time. So when you just change the way that you speak, you're able to open up that more shotgun approach. Keep in mind, a rifle is like a one-shotter. Shotgun shoots out a thing of BBs. You're using a shotgun approach of being able to properly communicate with your audience without having to exclude an audience, which, we teach target audience, we teach niching and all that kind of stuff, which is an exclusion. And then once you get there, then it's the way that you speak that is more inclusive. Ooh, that more welcomes everybody in. Another thing worth noting is that speaking to a third grader doesn't mean you have to speak slower or more kiddie. Hello there. It just means you use the root of a word. So if you say what I just said, inclusive, I would then say, what is an easier way of saying inclusive? Welcoming everybody. Ta-da! Another thing that is worth noting that when you're speaking to a third grader is that you're going to have a hard time holding their attention if you ramble on, if you're speaking about things that aren't as important, or if you're not presenting information in an interesting way. This is another thing from Alex Hormozi. I recently this week I've been reading his $100 million lead book, so I've been pulling stuff from this book, if you haven't noticed. And the three things he talks about is interesting. So something that holds, how do you hold someone's attention? You be interesting, and that holds attention. Fun is another way. So I think what that can look like from an Etsy standpoint is just being visually fun. And so it's really tempting to like white box our stuff and make it look like it was professional and all this kind of stuff, which sure, it can be helpful. But if you're missing fun from your listings, if you're not an enjoyable experience to look at, why would someone want to look at you? And why would they choose you over a competitor? And I think that's a real question you can ask yourself is, do I provide an interesting and fun experience? And then of course the last one being, which ties into our chain here, which is being able to comprehend or understand. So is it interesting? Is it fun to look at? And do I understand? And so run yourself through this third grade test and get yourself that one chain. Okay, let's move to our second chain of the two chains, which is I'll lay the story out first. So I've worked with mastermind students. Then these Etsy shops that I work with for a year, and so I get to A, know them very well, and B, I get to just see certain milestones that they're hitting and where they get stuck and how they overcome it and that whole thing. And one of the things that, well, this is going to go, I'm not hitting that two chain yet. I'm going to talk a side chain here. I believe that people mentally have a what they're worth value. So they've in their mind know like, oh, I want to make X amount of dollars a month, and what that can mean is that they feel like they're worth X amount of dollars a month. Sometimes I even see people feel guilty making more money or charging more for their products because they're like, well, it doesn't take me this long to make, or it's not that hard for me to do it, or I'm really good at it now. And so I feel like they initially start to look at what they're putting in and then be like, I can't charge that much, or I'm not worth that much. And that is a complete mental block in growing a business, which is I don't want to take more than my share. It's like that feeling of like, oh, I'll take a cookie, but I don't want to take all the cookies, which is ingrained in us. And a lot of us, it's how we're raised, and it's just part of being a good human is that you don't eat all the cookies off the cookie plate. But it is a mindset shift that needs to take place. And maybe I can save this for another podcast episode, but because I do want to hit our second chain here, and my babysitter's getting close on time here, so I got to wrap things up. But work on that. And like I said, we'll jump into this to another day. But yeah, there's a mindset shift that you need to value yourself first before you can scale. Okay, let's go back to the second chain here. Okay, so the second chain is this. People who are scaling their Etsy shop do three things in this order. That's the important part. In this order. Because you might be doing three things, but listen to the order. When you start to sell things on Etsy or things start to work, the first thing you do is more of what's working. The next thing you do is you do it better. The third thing you do is new. Let me say this again. More, better, new. Jared, why are you saying this so aggressively? Because this is what I see. New, more, new, more, new, better. That's what I see. It's called shiny object syndrome, which is I want to produce new. Now, guys, in typical business, if you had a business coach, they would kind of get on you about this, which is this shiny object syndrome. I'm not going to beat you up for it because Etsy sort of requires it. It's a unique thing to Etsy that new is good for your store. So if you and I were just talking business and you were like, hey, I have this advertising campaign, it's producing X amount of leads, and now we're going to launch this new one. This is the advice I would give you. There is a cost to change, and that cost, you're going to inherit it. Like, it is guaranteed. Whatever you're going to do is going to cost you more money, but you can't guarantee more results from it. So changing isn't always necessarily the best thing you do when you're in growth mode, because if you have something that's working, the idea is to do more of it and then do better of it and then do new of it. And so we don't want to inherit the cost of change unless we're at a spot where we need to change. And a lot of times in business, it can just be boredom that brings this, like, oh, I just want to change things up. I just want to see something different. I want to see more results. Or they get, you get kind of stuck in growth. And so you're like, let's try something new. And then you try something new and then, yeah. But Etsy is different. And so I do coach differently when it comes to Etsy shops. I say, like, no, that needs to be on your agenda. And it is a question I ask people. I say, what is in the horizon? What are you planning towards? What research are you doing to be able to see what else is out there? Because Etsy is your traffic source. And if the traffic source requires new, then we have to obey the traffic source. Now, it's not always better for the customer or the customer experience that you're just burying things with new or trying to redo something that's going to get you better results than something that's already giving you killer results. I think ultimately, let me put it this way, most of us would feel like, wouldn't it be great if Etsy's like, hey, Jared, I have a 5th spot available and you could put whatever you want there. That's where I would give the advice of, like, hey, don't change things up. Just put what you know sells really well, has a lot of proof, has a lot of feedback, customers are loving it, people come back and buy it again. Put that there and let it go. And don't you change that thing until you have to. But Etsy doesn't do that. Instead, Etsy says, hey, what else you got? Hey, what else you got? So this is why the formula that I'm saying here is the order that I want you to follow, though, which is that you have your store and you're going to get feedback on the things that are working for you. So you're going to get sales. Let's just say you make a baby Halloween costume. 'Tis the season, right? And it's the My Hungry Caterpillar that you make. And so let's go through the formula in this. And so the first thing you're going to do is be like, hey, my baby Halloween costume is doing really well. If I was you, I would look into, is it detailed or is it inspirational that I'm being found under? So are people searching baby Halloween costumes and then you show up? Or are they searching for My Little Caterpillar baby costume and you're showing up? And so you would go through your stats for that particular product. Go up to page 5. And then what I do when I'm doing this with other people is I literally write down inspirational detail. And I write down the inspirational, because a lot of them are just the same words worded differently. And I'll just write down, hey, inspirational keyword. And then I write down detailed. And I'm just watching views and I'm watching to see what it is. And then by the time I can have, I can be like, okay, 90% of his traffic is coming from inspirational, or 50% of their traffic is coming from inspirational. And that helps me gauge how shoppers are shopping for a particular product. So from there, once you know, I would assume people would be searching for baby Halloween costume or handmade baby Halloween costumes or something along the lines of that. So you're going to have a high inspirational keyword that's coming in for this Halloween baby costume. So then you're going to say, okay, what is coming to my store right now? I am getting a lot of people searching for baby Halloween costumes. I want to do more of this. So I want to hit that keyword more. This is going to do one of two things for you. Well, it's going to do two things for you. It's going to do multiple things for you. But these are the most important ones. It's going to give the customer a better experience, because if they're just searching for a Halloween costume, they're not selecting a Halloween costume. So you're able to present them more options for what they're looking for, which is baby Halloween costumes. This also gives Etsy, the algorithm, more data that you sell baby Halloween costumes, and it allows them to sort of play with those listings. You'll notice that sometimes certain months something might be killing it, or like, this is a great example. If your little hungry caterpillar costume might do really well in 2023, and then in 2024 it doesn't do anything, and you're like, what happened? I'll tell you what happened. Etsy isn't promoting it the same way it was promoting it the year before. So unless you are bringing in more of that type of product, it'll just, off it goes. And so more is how we want to think that way. All right, what are other ways that I can hit this audience? So a lot of times I repurpose keywords and things like that to help that. For example, is there another place that I could use this little hungry caterpillar baby costume? The answer to that is no, unless you just sold the sweater without the legs on it and it was just the, I don't know. You get what I'm saying. Wait. I gotta run it through my own third grader test. So, hey, third grader. When you sell something on Etsy, like baby Halloween costumes, there's going to be, Etsy wants to be able to promote multiple versions of what you're doing because they rotate the spot. So think of it like a vending machine, and that there's the chips that you buy right there on the front, and Etsy's going to use that chips, and as people buy it, those chips go. Well, eventually Etsy just says, well, we want to stop advertising that chip. We want to advertise a different chip in that vending machine. And that's where it can pull from another Halloween costume that you have, and it places it in that chip. So you went from salt and vinegar chips to now nacho cheese chips. And it's still a chip, still in the same spot. It's just a different chip. And unless we are providing more of that, a lot of the times you'll burn out quick. So hopefully that made more sense. The other thing that you do when you bring in costumes is that you feed the algorithm, and it teaches it that this is what you sell, and then you'll move up organically better. Now, to explain as a third grader what I was trying to say about can you repurpose it? So the idea is, and this is how you save costs, but also branch into new keywords, or if we go back to our vending machine analogy, you can say, all right, well, my little caterpillar hat has these little eyes on it to match the caterpillar. But if I just take the eyes off, it becomes just a beanie. And so now I can sell a baby beanie or toque, based on where you're from, that I didn't have to add any cost to what I'm doing, and it brings me more keywords because I can pick another spot in the vending machine where now I sell a candy bar, which is, in this scenario, the baby beanie, and then the Halloween costumes is in a different spot. So now you have two spots in the vending machine. So repurposing things to branch out to new keywords and creating things that are already working falls under that more. You're good to go. Okay. Hopefully that was a good explanation. Okay, the next thing is better. So this is where people do get stuck, is that they create something and then it becomes a lot of times quality starts to drop because they have to make it at volume. And so now they're like, oh my gosh, I have to, I used to be able to write a little note and do all this kind of stuff and really care, but now that I sell a lot more, I can't do any of that stuff. And so you're losing that better, the thing that sets you apart. And so that's why when sometimes someone comes in who's got less sales than you, but they have more attention to this, they care more about their orders. That's a good way to say that. They can sometimes steal some customers from you because they're just putting more, they have more time, they can take better pictures, yada, yada, yada. So you can't lose the better aspect of what you're doing. In fact, it needs to be right next to more. So, hey, I have something that's working. How can I do this more? And then how can I do this better? And when you have sales coming in, you have money coming in, and you need to take that money and invest it in better. That's what if you just sit on your cash, then you're not going to stay in business as long as you would hope, because someone will come in who either has cash and will take you out, or they're going to follow this and when they get to the better stage, invest their cash and do better than you. And if you are trying to sell a lesser product to someone, it is very difficult to do. But if you are the better product, then sales becomes easy. So focus in, invest in the better. Okay. I'm supposed to pick up my baby at 11. It is 11:01. So I gotta wrap this up. The last step is new. This is where we do our research. We find what's working. We look at our baby Halloween costumes and we go, wait a second, can I create other versions of this? Are there other seasons that people would buy something like this? Is there different ways do people like it because it's warm? Can I create other warming clothes? You just are thinking this way, you're doing your research, and then you go through and you do the research on what's working. I actually have a really great training on how to do the research. However, it's in my group. and my group is closed right now because I just have my founders in it. We're doing a test month. So no call to action. I'll let you know when that's available, and then you can jump in the group and you can do the whole thing. Okay, I gotta go, guys. Appreciate you. See you next week.